What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Derek and Cody, with you as always. Guys, the franchise tag deadline, or the start, I should say, is right here upon us. By the time this video releases, will be the first day in which teams are able to use the franchise tag on some very key players. And that deadline goes to March 5th, which will be 10 days before the new year starts for the NFL. So we got to go ahead and talk about it, Cody, because Indianapolis has been one of those teams where they haven't used a franchise tag in basically a decade. But here we are now debating on whether or not it is time to actually use it on another key pivotal piece for the Indianapolis Colts, and that is wide receiver Michael Pittman. Now, obviously, we have heard a lot from Michael Pittman over the offseason. He said that if he were to be franchise tagged, he would still play on it. He would not deem it as a inhumane thing to do. He just would hope that that would lead to a better option for the Indianapolis Colts going forward and being able to get a long-term deal done. At this point, Cody, we're kind of talking about it as to whether or not Indy should use it just to keep Pittman in Indianapolis until something gets done. But what do you think? What do you think the chances are of Indianapolis utilizing that franchise tag for the first time in what seems like forever to actually keep Pittman around?
Yeah, I would hope that it would be kind of a last ditch kind of, thing for Michael Pittman, like a kind of worst case scenario, if you will. Even though it's still a good case scenario. I mean, worst case out of the better cases of keeping Pittman around. If that's just something that you cannot come to an agreement with, I think that's when you see it happen. And then you continue to hash that out. I think the good thing is I've really appreciated Michael Pittman's attitude really throughout this whole process. He's been a guy that's, even last year when the whole Jonathan Taylor contract dispute and all that stuff was going about, it was great to see Michael Pittman keep a level head and say, you know what, I know I'm going to get paid what I deserve eventually. And so definitely appreciate that. But I mean, I would think that with how reasonable Pittman has been, I know he's kind of said, a few things that I'm sure his agent has kind of said, hey, sprinkle some of these things in here. Maybe hopefully Indianapolis will sweeten the deal a little bit, but I really do think that the Colts and Michael Pittman are going to come together on an agreement. I really do think they're going to figure something out because Pittman loves Indianapolis. Indianapolis obviously loves Michael Pittman as well. He's been, the number one receiver for the Colts for the last number of years. And so I think while, I wouldn't be surprised, if I wouldn't be shocked if they did that. I just get the sense, Derek, and I don't know where you stand on this, but I just get the sense that the Colts are probably more likely, and Colts and Pittman are more likely to agree on a multi-year deal than probably the Colts using the franchise tag. But again, you look at the same time, you haven't had a player over the last number of years that you've really had to use the franchise tag on, or even considered really using the franchise tag on. So definitely would say I'm probably more of a believer that the Colts and Pittman will, hammer something out here before free agency happens. But again, if you have to use a franchise tag, like Chris Ballard said, it's a tool for a reason. So if the Colts have to do that, wouldn't be shocked. But I mean, ultimately, I think both sides want the same thing, and that's Michael Pittman being in Indy for a long, long time. And so definitely would love to see either way. I'm good with it. Whatever the Colts just want to do, and really pay attention to nobody who thinks they know anything about this situation, guys. You've seen all those accounts out there. It's just ridiculous. It's clickbaity. So
no, it was funny because there was a NFL football Twitter page that said rumors are that the Indianapolis Colts are not going to utilize the franchise tag, and that if Pittman doesn't get a long-term deal before free agency starts, that he will most likely go somewhere else. And then there was that other NFL rumors report, that one NFL rumors page that got really popular from like a year ago, literally said the exact opposite of what that one said. Literally an hour later says the Colts are planning to try to utilize the franchise tag to keep Michael Pittman in Indianapolis despite him wanting to test free agency. So it's like, yeah, exactly. You can't trust any of this. You can never trust anything anyone says until the Colts actually make the move.
Yeah, everybody, thinks they know or has a source, and it's just, man, when that was like the popular thing a couple of years ago. I know we're getting a little off topic here. I'm just not like a proponent until, like you said, it's official from the Colts. That's when I'm going to believe it. I'm not going to listen to any or buy into any of the rumors. But I mean, from what we've heard with the organization, with how Chris Ballard's talked about Michael Pittman, with how Michael Pittman, has talked about Indianapolis, and even what we've seen from a little bit of comments from even his dad, talking about how Michael loves Indianapolis. We've seen it. I just have this feeling, man, that I would be shocked if the Colts and Michael Pittman don't reach some sort of agreement, whether that is the franchise tag or that is a long-term extension. But I think you say for the Colts, like, you have all this money, why not give your best receiver on your team, the money that he deserves, frankly. So I would say I'm more on the train of, I believe the Colts and Pittman will get something done, but yeah, I'm not. I guess I wouldn't be shocked though if they do use the franchise tag, and that is a possibility. And so maybe it is something, Derek, as free agency approaches. We get into March, and if the Colts and Pittman are just so far apart, they're like, all right, you know what? We're going to franchise tag you. You're still going to get a good amount of money this year. We'll resume talks. We'll figure something out, and we'll make it happen. But we're just not at that place right now. Maybe that's where the Colts and Pittman decide to land, but that's kind of where I see the scenario. Like, I don't see the Colts, on Tuesday, February 20th, agreeing to a franchise tag with Michael Pittman. I just don't see that happening. I just really don't see that as a likely scenario. I think that's a scenario as if you are so far apart on a deal, which frankly, I don't see happening. I really don't.
Okay. Well, Chris Ballard has always been a guy of keeping his own players, the ones that he drafts, he's loyal to them, sometimes to a fault. And I mean, that's just the mark of a GM. You want to keep the guys that you draft in the building to try to make sure that, you continue to build this team around what you brought in. It's like, it's a staple. It's kind of like a stamp of like, hey, look at what I've done, kept these guys all here and look at what they're doing for us. Right. And, Ballard's definitely one of the bigger proponents of doing that. For me, at the end of the day, a lot of it comes down to just basically the money, Cody. And it's interesting because remember, in 2025, remember what's going to happen to the cap space for every team when it comes to the NFL, right? They said that there was that giant jump where cap space is now going to be at, what was it, like 220 million or something versus what it was just last year, which was, like $30 million less. Now we're hearing reports that it might actually be higher. It actually almost might be $250 million for every team going forward, which is pretty much like a $50 million increase, which is insane to think about because listen, if I'm Michael Pittman, I'm saying to myself, I don't even care to really get a long-term deal done right now. Don't get me a long-term deal right now. Put me on the tag, and then next year, when that money goes skyrocketing, that's when you start asking for the big bag because everyone is going to be asking for more money because you're going to have $60 million more per team to be able to spend it. So it's definitely interesting. It's a matter of whether or not you think Indy should just do the deal now and keep themselves, because if you do the deal right now, Cody, and he wants a few more million per year than what the franchise tag would give you, then you're sitting there with the option of, I have less freedom to be able to make moves this offseason versus next offseason when we're going to have a lot more freedom to do a lot more things because of the cap space going and increasing. So it's definitely interesting. I think from my perspective, Cody, is what I think could happen is for the first time in a decade, I could see the Indianapolis Colts placing the tag on Michael Pittman, and then by midway through the season somewhere, kind of like similar to what they did to Jonathan Taylor this last year, is, hey, listen, we're going to work on an extension throughout the season. We don't want the increase in the extension that we're about to give you to count towards this year. Because the franchise tag amount is what, like just under $20 million?
23 million, I believe.
Yeah. So, it's something like that. And then, not having to spend that few extra million could really help you to kind of filling out the rest of your depth. And then you're telling him that throughout this season, we see you continue to do what you're doing. And then we sit back and we say, because we know the cap is increasing next year, let's get you a deal that works for you next season. Starting next season, you start getting that big bag because now we'll be able to have the money to be able to afford to do that for you. That's what I would think the Indianapolis Colts would like to have happen. What would you say to the idea of them tagging him to just try and sign him during the season and looking forward to like 2025?
I could see that being a possibility. Just, yeah, like you said, if they want a little bit more freedom this year, because you do have to re-sign potentially a decent amount of guys, more than probably you've ever had to sign of your own in-house guys. So I think that could make sense from that standpoint of like, okay, we tag Pittman, and we have him around. We can work out an extension. We believe he's going to continue to play, and also seeing him with Anthony Richardson. I mean, for Pittman, like you said, it could even increase his value more. But Indy looks at that and they say, cap space is rising next year. We're going to re-sign a lot of these guys that are core guys for us. I mean, Derek, you really look at that 2021 class, you don't have a Jonathan Taylor type of player, right? You don't have really even a Michael Pittman type of player at this point. Your 2021 class at this point isn't near what your 2020 class was. So you're not going to have all these guys necessarily needing all these extensions like you're having this year. And so that could make a lot of sense where Indy says, we're going to have all this money. We'll kind of kick the can down the road a little bit with the contract talks for Pittman. And we're going to go out this year and we're going to get a couple, impact free agents. Right. And I know there's some other ways the Colts could potentially help, open up some more cap space for themselves. So I could see that being a possibility. I could see that being a possibility where the Colts are like, we feel like we're, a couple bigger pieces away from seriously competing. We still want to have Pittman in the equation. So we can do a little bit of both with this, and it offers us a little bit more flexibility than maybe we'd have if we sign him to a multi-year extension this offseason. So that does make a lot of sense. But, honestly, I could see either way. I really could see the Colts and Pittman just being like, look, we don't want to, have this be a thing that, extends beyond the season. Let's just get it done. And let's just finish it. We're good. We'll move on. Or I could see the franchise tag. So, and I guess the good thing is Pittman wouldn't be offended if he was on the franchise tag. So he knows that Indy wants him around, and I believe he wants to be in Indy. So I definitely could see that being a scenario as well.
Yeah, I feel just like if the Colts keep an open mind with him and, just keep open communication, which I don't think is going to be a problem. And Pittman has said like, hey, listen, I'm not going to make a big deal out of getting tagged, because I understand that this is what's going to happen. It's part of the business. And, and he said it too at the beginning of the season, like, is anyone really going to be upset about getting paid $20 million? I mean, honestly, not really. So, I mean, it's one of those situations. He's got a good head on him. I think it would just make a lot more sense because if you're Indianapolis and you have that more free reign to do that, it just would make more sense going forward to be able to get a deal done that extends starting next season. And especially since you can feel like you can maybe give him that extra $1 or $2 million, per year to be able to make him feel more welcome for doing that kind of deal. But I could see the situation where, you might as well try to get that deal done because, you also, I don't really truly know what Michael Pittman is feeling about trying free agency. We know he's been saying it, that he wants to expand his horizons and keep an eye out and see what's out there. But I mean, Cody, I don't know if you ever have heard any of the interviews that he's done, but it doesn't sound very convincing to me when he says it. Like, it doesn't sound like he's actually really thinking about wanting to leave. Like, he sounds like he's wanting to check what's out there, but he was saying, like, oh, I don't want to sacrifice my potential opportunities for comfortability. But I mean, it didn't sound it didn't sound very like he actually meant it. And it sucks now because I feel like I'm having to be a freaking psychic trying to get into the mind of Michael Pittman now, where I just want the Colts to get a deal done already, just so I can, sleep better at night.
Right, exactly. Yeah, then like I said earlier, it is probably just. I mean, I don't blame them. Like why not? If the Colts will give you a couple more million per year, because you maybe call them a little bit and say some of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't really see a scenario where seriously Michael Pittman is like saying, "Hey, I don't want to be in Indy anymore." So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Colts go about it, man. I'm really intrigued to see, do they like to do the franchise tag for the first time since, what was it, like 2013 or something crazy like that? It's been a long time. So do they like to do the franchise tag? Do they like to do something else? Long-term extension will be interesting to see there. But guys, let us know your thoughts on Michael Pittman with the franchise tag window opening here today on Tuesday. Let us know your thoughts. Should the Colts try to get a long-term deal done with Pittman? Would you rather them, franchise tag him and potentially work on a deal this next season? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.